Oh, we're on. Sorry. Season 6, episode 38 of the Hotspur America podcast. We are at Hotspur America. You can find us on Twitter at Hotspur America. I'm at Ztronch. Vass is with us at VCOM1. Dan is at Yidvids. And we have special guest Brooks Koepka with us today. Brooks can be found at TIMMAH621. We have lots to talk about. As you can see, we have video, which means we have a YouTube channel. So please find us on YouTube. Please hit subscribe. Leave us a review. You can find the pod on just about anywhere that you find podcasts, iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify. We're there. And we're grateful for all the questions, all the feedback, all the reviews that you give us. You make the pod great, and we're very, very grateful. We have a victory to discuss. A 2-0 result at home against the Spammers. Where shall we begin? I guess, Tim, I'll start with you. General thoughts on setup and lineup and tactics, and we'll all get into it here.
I mean, it's kind of a Mourinho lineup. He likes to keep a consistent back four, and it looks like that pairing of Dyer and Sanchez is our pairing moving forward. 2 games in a row, Toby's left on the bench, Vertonghen's left on the bench. So you could say it's surprising, but I think it's also telling for what we can expect for the future. Sissoko retains his spot, coming back from injury, starting 2 games in a row. Those are kind of the big talking points. No, I'm just kidding. And Ndombele is the big talking point. But we'll get onto that one later. We'll table that for now. But yeah, you see that lineup, and it's 4-2-3-1, consistent Mourinho lineup. So I think we have a good idea of what to look forward to for the remainder of this season.
So, Vass, I want to ask you this because, Tim just talked about the importance of having a consistent back four, and Toby's not part of a consistent back four. And if I would have asked you, or if I would have told you 3 months ago that we would have restarted the season and Toby wouldn't have been a fixture in the back four, would that have surprised you?
I guess it would. I mean, obviously, before Toby re-signed his contract, once Jose came in, we were all half expecting him to leave at the end of this season. So if it had been back then probably we wouldn't have been expecting him to play as much, as he was gradually going to be phased out. But as he signed a new contract, you'd think that he's pretty much cemented his place going forward. But I've got to be completely honest, I'm quite encouraged by the Dyer-Sanchez partnership right now. And it seems to be working quite well. So, I guess Toby's going to have to be mature about it. We know what the situation is with Jan. He's probably just going to play out this season and then have to go somewhere new. So it seems Dyer and Sanchez is here for the moment.
And so we had hold on a second. We had John Paul Williams on Facebook said he's sold on the Dyer Sanchez pairing. Bass, are you now sold on it after seeing these last 2 games? Hey, that's a first clean sheet in a long time. That's only goal given up off of a penalty kick out of 180 minutes. That we're not used to seeing that at Tottenham Hotspur this season.
We're not. You're absolutely right. A clean sheet is a very rare thing as far as we're concerned. There was about 5 this season, something ridiculous like that, equal with Norwich or something.
I think it's equal to Bournemouth. I think
Bournemouth, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's some good company to be in.
Yeah, it's that bad. So no, look, I'm encouraged by it. I think previously when we were not keeping clean sheets, we generally tended to agree that it might have been lack of protection in front of the back four. So maybe it's coincided also with Sissoko coming back and Winks playing too, giving us more of a defensive base. But no, Dyer and Sanchez seems to be working quite well at the moment. So I'm quite happy with it.
I think what I'm most encouraged about with it is just the age of those 2 players. That at least gives us something to look forward to for the future. We're not in the situation where Toby's got 2 years left until he reaches an age of we're going to have to move on from him. We have these players who can be that center back pairing for a long time. And look, Daniel Levy, Mourinho just gave you a huge windbreak because he saved you about $40 million in the transfer window, having to go out and get a center back by moving Dyer there.
Well, hang about. I mean, Dan, is it fair to ask you that 2 games does not make a trend here?
Yes. I think you just took my point out of my mouth. I think let's come back at the end of the season, maybe in October.
Get on the fucking train, okay?
Then I have to ask you this. I mean, again, it's 2 games, sure. One of them was United, and seems to be working. I mean, we're not grumbling about this, right?
Right. Okay, I'm going to be slightly devil's advocate, slightly what I actually believe. I think Man United, I think we were quite lucky to only keep it to 1 goal. I think they had a lot of chances. West Ham
was that Dyer's fault? Was that Dyer's fault?
No. Well, maybe you could blame the goal on him, but no, I think he had a good game. I think both of them did have a good game against Man United and against West Ham. Although, like I say, Man United probably should have beaten us. West Ham, I mean, they're not much cops, so I think let's give it a couple more games before the train pulls into my station anyway.
I agree. I think a real saving grace here is if it doesn't work out, you got a terrific defender to bring right back in, right? So that's good. All right, so let's talk about West Ham.
I want to talk about Dyer still.
Timmy driving the agenda.
Go on. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Well, we ran a Twitter poll. We put 4 names out there to see who everyone's man of the match was. Lo Celso had 73.1%, the overwhelming favorite. But for me, I'm going with Dyer was my man of the match, and he got 17.2%. But I think Dyer completely neutralized any attack that West Ham had in this game. They tried to play the long ball to Antonio. They were sitting 10 behind the ball pretty much throughout the match. And so, kind of what we saw that didn't work for us against United, trying to play the long ball to Kane. That seemed to be what West Ham was trying to do with Antonio, and Dyer won almost every battle in the air with him. Every ball on the ground to him, Dyer had a first foot in. He completely neutralized any attacking threat that West Ham had for that match. And you put that on top of how vocal he was, yelling at the pitch to everybody, organizing the defense. For me, that's why Dyer gets my man of the match. I'm finally putting my Dyer jersey back on. It's been a while. Now I'm just fucked because I got this Ndombele one sitting in my closet.
I don't want to take away from his performance, but it was West Ham, and he clearly sets up well, right, to play against a team that tactically sets up like West Ham does. And when people are coming at him directly, like in a Pogba situation like that, which again we talked last week how he didn't get the help he needed, and most defenders are going to get used up by Pogba there. Look, he had a good game, and I would take that away from him, and long may it continue. All right, so aside from Eric Dyer, what have Spurs done for us lately? All right, let's talk about the things that did work out well. Dan, I'll go back to you. We'll let you start off the discussion here.
I thought our possession was much better. I sort of liked the way we started to play. We started to try and get the ball and sort of knacker them out a bit. I think we proceeded to knacker ourselves out a bit, as Kane proved. But yeah, in terms of the actual style of football, I think a lot of people were saying it was quite turgid in the first half, and I sort of agreed. I think there's a bit lack of atmosphere. But I think being on the front foot and actually creating chances was a welcome change, especially to the Man United game. So I think that was what my criticism was. The defending wasn't my issue with that game, but I was really worried about our lack of intent going forward. And I know West Ham obviously aren't as good as Manchester United, but I think the trying to get on the front foot and trying to score goals, and we probably should have had more than 2, really. I think that was my biggest plus point and takeaway.
Dan, we see 64% possession in this game. Does that tell you that sitting back against United was simply a tactic for that match? Maybe does that give us some hope that we're not going to see that every single game by Mourinho?
Yeah, maybe.
Did you see any possession stats just for the first half?
69%. 69% in the first half. Yeah.
Damn, Tim, you're good. I was thinking that you might not have seen that. Wow, well done. Yeah, I mean, okay.
Can't catch me sleeping.
I wasn't trying to. That's great. I'm glad you know that. Thank you. No,
just rattling shit off the top of the dome right now.
Dude, he's fucking.
Ask me something else.
Bro, I'm worried that you're gonna fucking leave us for like the extra inch or somebody. Okay. Seriously, no. But why? Okay, that's why I ask you this. But why did I feel like the first half was just utter drivel? It looked bad to me.
It felt bad to me as well, Sam, and I was actually quite pleased post game when I heard both Eric Dyer and Jose Mourinho speak, and they both said similar stuff in as far as the first half wasn't good enough. We weren't moving the ball quickly enough, and it was a bit of lack of intensity in the final third in our game. And this is the kind of things that I was feeling also. I felt that we were laboured in the final third particularly. Okay, we had a lot of possession, and that's because West Ham put 10 behind the ball generally. but we wanted too many touches around the box. Our first touches were poor at times. It'd be a first touch and then it'll just drift away. I don't think we did anything over a prolonged period in that first half that gave encouragement to say that we were finding our feet or going to dominate this game. But the second half was much better. But you got a point. First half, I wasn't pleased at all.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Well, I think the way the first half ended kind of puts a sour taste on everybody for it, because you have VAR ruling out a goal in the 45th minute. And then you have Ben Davies play Lucas in like the 48th minute, just wide open for the shot, and he pushes it wide. And that's your lasting thoughts heading right into the break. And so I think that kind of taints it a little bit.
I don't know. I think they were, sorry, Sammy, they were our only real chances in the first half, those two, and they came right at the end. The Sonny disallowed goal was unfortunate, but VAR got the decision correct. Lucas did have one long-range shot before that from outside the area that their goalie tipped over. And then he had the better chance, as you rightly said, that Davies crossed into him. And that was such a poor effort to put that wide. Yeah, but they were only a three only real chances in that first half, which was a bit meh, really.
Well, look, I mean, I think the one thing that I kind of kept coming back to is West Ham's really bad. Like, they're really, really bad. And they just don't really offer anything up front that really should threaten us, especially if we're going to have sort of a stable back or an approach where we have this stable back four foundation. So it's interesting that you mentioned Dyer's comments. I was really I'll ask Dan about this. Dan, did you see his comments, and did you find them to be just sort of refreshingly honest? Like, it was a bullshit to them?
Oh, I don't think I saw him. What did he say?
Well, I'll go back to Vass, because I think he and I sort of agreed on this. Vass, I mean, your take on his comments, you touched on it a little bit, but what was sort of just your personal takeaway from how he approached that interview?
Yeah, I think Eric Dyer interviews quite well from that standpoint, because he's done it before. He is quite honest, and he gives an honest assessment. And when we're not playing well, then he'll kind of say so. And I think that's the message that came across from him after the game against West Ham, and he kind of intimated that at half time they all had a bit of a kick up the backside to try and do better essentially in the second half, and so it proved.
Yeah, and maybe my other takeaway was that there was a message that was shared by Mourinho, and by way of him so eloquently describing it, he sort of gets Mourinho's talk. Yeah. Tim, I'll go to you. Maybe we end on this, because you always struggle to find anything bad that Mourinho does. Is there anything that troubled you, that was of concern to you in that performance against West Ham?
I think two things. One is just man management by Mourinho, the use of substitutions. That's 5 out of a possible 10 in these last two games, when you have a bunch of fixture congestion you're going to run into. You have players in Son, Sissoko, and Harry all coming back from lengthy injuries, starting both games. Harry and Sissoko both playing 180 minutes in the two games. So I think that's a bit of concern. But I think the other thing tactically is what we're doing on the right side of the pitch and how it's affecting Delhi. Is when you put Lucas in there, he doesn't maintain his width. He constantly drifts inside. When you have West Ham, who's sitting 10, sometimes even all 11 behind the ball, it's super congested. You have, Dyer about 45 yards out from their goal. Everything in that midfield is just so packed together. And when you don't maintain your width, it's allowing Delhi no space. And part of that, I think tactically, that can be an issue, is we're sending the message for Aurier to push so far up on that side. So he's the one who maintains that width. But I don't know if Lucas coming so far in, almost all the way into the middle of the pitch, helps us on that. So I think tactically that's a bit concerning, is how are we going to manage that on the right side if we're attacking through Aurier and essentially neutralizing any possibility Delhi has at contributing to the match?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Delhi. Dan, I'll ask you this. I mean, my sense is that he was just ineffective. And we had a listener question that came from S6E38. What happened to Delhi? Doesn't put in a shift, so unless he scores, he offers nothing. I mean, Tim suggests that some of his problems may be tactically, or maybe because of tactical reasons more than anything else. Is that fair? How much is the setup versus Delhi?
I think it's a bit unfair, really, because this is his first game back. Remember, he didn't play against Manchester United. How long's it been? 3.5 months. We're going to judge him on 60 minutes. A bit harsh, I think. He didn't have the best game in the world, but there's a few of them who didn't, to be honest. Before the lockdown, I think he was subdued because of the lack of other players we had up front. Kane missing, obviously. Son was missing for a bit as well. He needs to get back to that form he had, December, when Mourinho came in. But he's always been he'll have an off game, won't do anything, and he'll just give the ball away 10 times. And then the next week, he will win it for us. So it's almost like he just needs to find that consistency again, I think. But there's still a player in there.
Well, I think you make a great point there because, as you said this, it made me think. Can we think? Granted, we're a couple of games in. Can you think of any player in the Premier League that's just been on fire, has just had an outrageous performance in either game that he's played in? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, fair play.
Well. But he's the best in the league anyway. So it's a high bar.
And he hasn't been out. He hasn't been out to the degree that. Well, I guess. Yeah. Well, anyway, all right. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, you're right. Nobody's really setting the league on fire after a couple of games. And
give him a couple more games.
All right.
Yeah, I think you need to give him a couple more games. And another question from Big at Spurs last minute: how do we fix Delhi? And that is a big conundrum because aside from that purple patch he had around December time, he hasn't seemed himself for quite a while. Now, granted, this was his first game back. He's only had 60 minutes. Let's hope he picks up for the rest of the remaining part of the season. But it just seems to me that he either wants too many touches and he ends up slowing us down, or sometimes he tries to be too quick and we end up losing possession. So I think Delhi needs to find himself again. We had all that joke from Jose earlier when he took over about whether we got Delhi's brother playing and that kind of thing. I think he really needs to find himself. He needs to have a prolonged period with Kane up front. But then, as Timmy alluded to, we need the pieces around them to function better. The persistence with Lucas Moura, I still don't get. Bergwijn seems to be a good addition. And Sonny as well has not been as effective. He seems to be stuck out there on the left. He had a great goal disallowed. But, I think they came to life a bit more in the second half. But
yeah, for sure.
We need to get something better out of them, and hopefully that will come in the next game.
I think you guys have made excellent points there. Now, I got to laugh because last week was green shoots. This week is purple patch. You need to explain to Tim what a purple patch is.
I know what a purple patch is.
You do?
Yeah,
you really do?
I have no idea how to explain it.
a bit of a rough run of form.
Yeah. A good run.
Good run of form.
Good run of form.
A purple patch.
Purple patch is a good run of form.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess I don't know what a purple patch is. Thank you for enlightening me.
I figured you needed explain.
Hey, I'm colorblind, so I get a pass on this.
Are you really?
I am.
What color shirt are you wearing right now?
Oh, well, I already know that. This is blue. I know what all my shirts colors are. That doesn't mean
I get shit about your hat. What's the P for? What's it really for?
Puma.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay. All right. So, okay, quick fire questions. So, Big White Hart Lane at Spurs last minute. Is Dyer a future captain? Dan.
Do you know what, right? This bothers me. And I think he could be. I'm not knocking the question. However, I get really annoyed when I see people on Twitter going, oh, Lloris isn't a captain material. Kane should be the captain. And I get it. Kane's come through the academy. He's Mr. Tottenham, whatever. A captain isn't always the one who shouts the loudest. And I think the fact that Lloris is captain for France, and people disagree with me, I'm really in the minority here. Sometimes you lead sort of by example. And I think, does Dyer do that enough at the moment? No. Does he shout or does he sort of round the troops together? Yes. Kane does as well. I think Kane would be a captain before him. But I'm happy with Lloris at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about maybe selling Dyer. So to go from that to proclaiming him captain, it's a massive step. Yeah, I don't know if he'll be future captain material or whatever. If the captain's armband moves from Hugo, then it goes to Harry Kane.
But you know what this discussion shows is it shows
Give
you
Dyer the armband.
Well, no, but I mean, it shows you how short memories are. As football fans, is that we're such sort of immediately gratified, humans when it comes to sport and results, and it's just unbelievable to me. Like as bad as he was at times last year, and for as good as Toby has been for frankly his entire career, 2 games into 2 good games for Eric Dyer, and we're fielding questions about him being a captain, right? I mean, so
Look,
there's a phrase I love
Dyer
to say:
plays, we get
tapping the brakes. We should tap the brakes here a little bit.
Hey, Dyer plays, we get a clean sheet, you give him the armband. Deli plays,
Hey,
he doesn't score or get an assist, you sell
You're
him.
only saying this because you spent 20 pounds. You're only saying this because you spent 20 pounds to put his name on the back of your shirt. Yeah.
Okay, right. Without
Uh,
okay. So Harry is injured. Lloris is injured. Who's captain? Vertonghen's gone.
Eric Dyer, if he's
Yeah.
starting. Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, who else would they be?
Alderweireld? I don't know. Son? I don't know.
No.
The GOAT.
Hey, not on the rundown. Not on the
Yeah.
rundown. But we mentioned Son. Almost as twice in as many minutes. Raj Bennett. I think he's at Raj Bennett. He's part of the Men in Blazers podcast. I love the guy. He's a suffering Evertonian fan. He's just a great writer, great presenter. He did a gorgeous interview of Heung-min Son. And he just has his way of words and being sort of poetic and how he sort of describes players and also Sonny as a human being. It's a fantastic watch. I loved it. I don't know whether you guys watched it, but he's at Raj Bennett. Any of you guys get to see that?
No.
We couldn't over here.
Oh, you couldn't?
It's
Oh
banned,
man.
yeah.
Oh, that stinks. It's really great. I mean, they spend a lot of time on the 87-yard goal, and Sonny goes through the play-by-play of what he was thinking about it. Spends a lot of time on really the human side of him as a player and his sort of sense of responsibility to his country, his recent stint in the military, even though I don't think he really had to do it. So it's just I think he's an amazing player, and you could argue he's an even better person. And if there's a way that you guys can get to watch it, you certainly should. All right, back to quick fire questions. At Trey Terry, I love this question, and I don't know who to ask this to. It's got to be Dan and Bess have to answer this. On a scale from selfie sticks to Nickelback, how much does Jose Mourinho hate Tanguy and Ndombele? Bess, I'll you start.
So I'm guessing that selfie sticks is really bad, and Nickelback is what? Is that really bad too?
That's really bad.
Nickelback's pretty bad. Yeah. although there are a few people that like Nickelback, and if they do, they love Nickelback. But that's probably like a 2%.
I remember they had one good song, but anyway. Selfie sticks, probably. No one likes selfie sticks, do they? He's got an issue. He's got an issue with Tanguy as much as he tries to dress it up. And Tim mentioned earlier about Jose's man management. And there would have been absolutely nothing wrong with him introducing Tanguy for the last even 5 minutes, but say 10 minutes, just to show the world that I have no beef with this guy. He's part of my plans. I'm just easing him in, blah, blah, blah. But instead, he keeps him on the bench again, and then he throws out some comments in the post-match about there are other players that don't play, and I can only play 12 or 13. I can't play 12 or 13 players and all this stuff. So I don't really know what's going on there. I think Alistair Gold tried to come up with some theories and some comments about how Tanguy really is in Jose's long-term plans and what have you, but I need to see some proof in the pudding really before I start believing that.
Yeah.
Tim, I mean, go ahead, Danny.
I didn't have much. Yeah, there you go. Tim asked.
I thought you were sending the scale to me. I'm saying fanny packs is in the middle of that.
Well, no, I just look. I've had this conversation with Vass throughout the last couple of weeks. So how much of this is Jose versus how much of this is the player? Vass made the comment that Jose spoke to the fact that Alistair says that he's part of the long-term plans. I'll ask this to Dan. I mean, how much of that is just because we spent 60 million pounds on him, and the chairman probably wants to see a return on the investment here?
Well, I get the feeling that if we get anywhere near that or get an option for like a 2-year loan from one of the big clubs, I think we take it. And there's no point in having someone worth that much money sitting on your bench, especially now when we've got to raise funds to buy any new players. I mean, all that stuff came out in the French media about how Todd Mourinho didn't want to play for him again. I don't know whose fault it is. I think people who jump on either side probably are disingenuous or at best have like some sort of agenda, a bit like me sometimes. But there's an issue between the two, and whatever Mourinho's doing, he's not getting what he wants out of Ndombele. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I can't see him being here after the summer. Can any of you guys?
Well, let me ask Tim. I want to ask you because Tanguy was your man. You identified him very, very early in our discussions about players that we wanted to have in. He's here. Now what?
I don't know. I don't know. I think you have to try and make it work. And, the question is, how do you make it work? Well, we've seen Mourinho. We've seen what's happened before. When he was at Chelsea, he had these issues with Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne. When he was at United, he had these issues with Pogba and Luke Shaw. He's not going to change. This has happened before. So if somebody's going to have to make a change for this to work out, it's on Ndombele.
And what
he's the one who's going to have
is?
to show some effort, because I think he's also at fault in this. I don't doubt that he's not showing full effort in training. I mean, hell, he didn't show full effort in a match against Burnley. That was, everybody knows what I'm talking about. That just jogging, not putting a foot in. The guy has loads of talent, but it doesn't seem that he has the desire to really work for it. He doesn't have the drive like a Harry Kane. He just wants to rest on the talent he has and skate by on that. That's what it seems like. And it's not speculation, because clubs he's been at previously, this was an issue. When he was coming through a youth system, this was the issue. He doesn't put in the effort. So I think it's a combination of fault, both from Mourinho and Ndombele. But if it's going to work, Ndombele has to show the effort in training. Otherwise, Mourinho's not going to play you. It's as simple as that.
Are we describing a luxury player here, Vass? And if so, is there room at Spurs for a luxury player with Jose Mourinho at the helm?
While Pochettino was still here, I think not just myself and Tim, but probably half the Tottenham fan base on social media all were pointing fingers at Ndombele and saying, get that guy in at Spurs. And when he signed, it was considered quite a coup for us to have got him ahead of some of the teams that he could have gone to. Whether he's a luxury player, I don't know. He could try harder, of course. He could work on the defensive aspect of his game. But some players are not like that. I'm not saying he's Glenn Hoddle, but for goodness sake, Hoddle never tackled back when he was playing in our team, and he was a fantastic player for us. That's just an example. I'm not comparing them, by the way. So I don't know what gives. I think the problem is Mourinho. Sometimes he needs something to spark him. He had it with Juan Foyth at one point. He put in a good performance. I can't remember who it was, and he was really impressed with him. And he started him, but then Juan didn't have a good game, and then he got injured.
Yeah, basically he gave at least he gave him the rope. At least he gave him the rope.
Yeah, and then even with Lo Celso, I think there was a period when he played him a couple of times, and he was like, "Wow, okay, I've got myself a player here," and then he became an integral part of the team. So the problem is, I don't know how that spark's going to happen for Ndombele if he's not playing competitive minutes. I get what Tim's saying about he's got to put it in on the training pitch, and he has. But at the same time, he bossed the midfield for Lyon, against quality opposition.
And he's done well for us as well.
He's done well for us when he's played. Yeah. I mean, what do we want from him as well? Do we want him to sort of boss the midfield and put us on an attacking foot, or do we want him tackling back in front of our central defensive defenders? So I don't know.
It's definitely the former. He's not the player who's going to be your rock in front of the back four. He's not the true defensive midfielder.
Precisely.
That talent he has with his footwork, you don't want to waste that on him just sitting back. He needs to drive the play forward, and we know he can do that. But also keep in mind, I think Pochettino said when he first arrived that it could take 18 months for him to adjust to the league. We're only at a year right now. We're not even at the end of that timeline where Pochettino is saying it's going to take a while for him to find his footing in the Premier League and a new culture. But the thing that I'm looking at from the standpoint of whether there really is a rift between Mourinho and Ndombele, like some speculation is going on to the point where he said he's unwilling to train or he's done playing for Mourinho. He's put in his 2 weeks. When Alistair asked Mourinho about that, we know Mourinho's not shy. He'll answer a question. He doesn't mind calling a player out, but he didn't do it there. So that's what at least gives me some hope, is that he had his opportunity to call Ndombele out and say what's really going on, which we know he's done many times in the past, and he didn't do it. So
yeah, but I believe he actually denied it. I think he flatly denied that there was a training ground bus stop. So, Dan, let me ask you this. I mean, is there a parallel? Is there a player that you can draw a parallel somewhere in the league, either recently or historically, that turned it around, that had these kind of mercurial qualities yet was falling so short?
Well, that's put me on the spot. That is. Go on, man.
I got one. I got one.
Oh, you do?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, if I remember correctly, Didier Drogba had a shocking first year in the Premier League. And he turned it around in the second season, I think. His second and third seasons were phenomenal. People forget.
Under Mourinho. Under Mourinho, of course.
Yeah. And I think people are not very. We'll come to you in a second.
I know what he was going to say. Of course. How did I not get that?
People are not very. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Sorry.
People aren't very patient, is what I was going to say. People aren't very patient, and the media aren't very patient these days. As soon as a player goes for a riff, I mean, half Spurs fans now are talking about binning Ndombele off. It's probably the same Spurs fans that wanted him through the door at any cost not that long ago. So, yeah, there's a thing there. Go on,
Tim. So clearly Tim is going to talk about this one player, and this one player is going to talk about, put your hand up if you wanted to bin him his first 4 months at Spurs.
Who is it?
You don't know who I'm going to talk about?
Go!
You want to draw parallels. Somebody who was our record signing, who struggled for a full season, Moussa Sissoko.
Of course.
But I say that jokingly, but I don't, because he came in as a record signing, and he had a very poor, awful first season. Everybody wanted to get rid of him.
We made the bet then.
We did. We did make the bet, and I didn't put my hand up because I said persevere with him. And we look at it, and I know there's lots of jokes about he's a GOAT, but he's been a very dependable player for us, both for Pochettino and now for Mourinho. They both clearly like him. He brings good qualities, and I think that's a perfect parallel for this. Certainly, Ndombele has a much higher ceiling than Sissoko. He could be the greatest midfielder in the Premier League, but he needs to put forward the effort on that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Dan, please. Yep.
Well, the only thing different with that, I completely agree. Actually, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. But the only thing different is, Pochettino wasn't digging out Sissoko for 12 months beforehand.
No, but I think Poch did. I mean, Poch, I think, made his comments. I think Poch was honest about Sissoko's transition problems at times.
I think it was more that he wasn't very good. I think more than he wasn't putting the effort in and that sort of thing. Horses over. He was.
I mean, even it didn't. Sonny want to leave after the first season. Yeah. He wasn't quite sort of bedded in or felt comfortable or whatever. So I think he wanted to go at the end of the season, and Pochettino had to talk him round. And he's been fantastic for us.
And maybe
as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Another young player that was atrocious in the beginning was Danny Rose.
Yeah, true.
And so you're right, and so maybe it kind of goes back to the comment that I made earlier about, hey, we just get so locked in on what we see in the here and now, is that we sort of forget or we lose a sense of perspective and patience. All right, great discussion there. Great points all around. Injuries. Sheffield United lost to Arsenal in the FA Cup today. They had, for as well as they played pre-COVID, from a playing perspective, it seems like they've got a case of COVID. They haven't been very good at all. But let's talk about injuries. How is everybody looking going into next week? Timmy?
So looking at the week ahead for us, Troy Parrott's still out recovering from the appendectomy. He's set to begin rehab and return to training possibly this week. So keep an eye on his status. Juan Foyth, the knee injury. There were reports coming out of Argentina saying that he was going to have season-ending surgery, but Mourinho's played those down and has said that he hopes to have him back before the end of the season. And then our last injury is Yaphet Tanganga dealing with the stress fracture in his back. Unlike with Parrott and Foyth, there's been no timeline update from the club, and so that can be a bit worrying. It sounds like it's a bit more serious than what it was first led on to be. So keep an eye on that status. Once we hear something from the club on the timeline, we'll surely pass that along. But right now, it's no report at all for an expected return to training with the first team. Then you look at Sheffield United. Some people are saying they have lots of players out. There's lots of injuries. That's not the case. They only have one player out. That's Jack O'Connell, a center back. He's dealing with the knee injury, and he may be coming back. He was a late fitness test for their FA Cup match on Sunday against Arsenal. He didn't make the bench, but prior to the shutdown, he had played every 90 minutes for them in every single Premier League game, the full game, never subbed out. So that's a big player for them. Given that he was a late fitness test for the FA Cup, he could be available for us. So keep an eye on whether he recovers before Thursday, but that's their only absence. Dean Henderson missed the Man United match because he's on loan from United. He will be back. John Egan missed the Man United match because he picked up a red card against Newcastle, but it was for a second yellow. So that's only a 1-game suspension. He's going to be back. And I think that's when you look at Sheffield's recent form, you see that their goalkeeper was out for a match. They played with 10 men against Newcastle for a long period. And 2 of their starting center backs, when they play a back 3, have been missing for some of those matches in Jack O'Connell and John Egan. So they're not really in that bad of a position as their recent form lets on.
All right.
You know, I watched the Arsenal game today as well, and I thought they played really well, Sheffield United.
I thought so too, Dan. I
Yeah,
thought so too.
They had 2 goals disallowed, didn't they? And I think they're quite unlucky. They're kind of stupid at the end to keep going so far forward and got caught on the break. But yeah, be a tough game.
The thing with them is they don't have any like real individual threat, but they play really well as a team together.
They really do.
Yeah.
They work
move
hard.
well. They work hard. They move well as a unit. Everybody is on the same page.
I tell you, so listen to this. Their manager, this was astounding. He's had 900 games under his belt. He's been managing like almost like the non-league level all the way up. I mean, I think he's had stints at, Doncaster, Oxford United. I mean, all these unbelievable, like, I think out of all those games, this is only like the second time that a team that he has managed has played another Premier League team in the FA Cup. And the point to make is that, man, he's a terrific, terrific manager. He's a terrific coach. And you can watch, to Dan's point. I mean, Dan, they're really organized, aren't they? I mean, they move the ball around very crisply, don't they?
And they press as well. They press a lot, quite high, which I think might suit us, actually. Although it might not if they get on top of us. But yeah, they work super hard. I mean, like you said, they haven't really got much sharp point in the box. They got Billy Sharp, who came off the bench today, and he might come off the bench again. He's a good striker, but they haven't really got that superstar, that sort of number 10 great guy. But from crosses, they're really dangerous. They scored one from a corner today that was disallowed, and then another one from a free kick, I think.
It was the throw-in. They do the throw-ins.
That's right, yeah, throw-in, yeah. So you've got to be wary of that.
The only team I think that has overlapping centre backs.
Yeah,
their centre backs play like fullbacks. Yeah. It's just weird setup, but the system suits them, and they're going to be a tough team to beat. No question.
And they battered us at White Lane. Really, they should have won that game. They had that VAR call that was like half a metre offside. Yeah, even I was saying this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. He was committing offside by so little, it was just ruined it for them. But I think we drew 1-0. Was it Poch's last game?
Poch's last game, yeah, it was.
Wasn't it? But they should have beaten us, I think, that day.
Yeah, I watched it for probably 20 minutes today. I was really taken aback by how organized they were, how well they moved the ball around, how thoughtful their football was. And frankly, if I was a Sheffield United fan, I'd be very entertained. So yeah, I think our work will be cut out for us. And then my biggest takeaway was, fuck, we can't really make a lot of mistakes against a team like this that's as organized as they are. Tim, I mean, how are we supposed to approach this game tactically? Dan talks about how their pressing setup might work well for us. Your thoughts there?
I think we're going to see us approach it a bit like we approached United, because they are going to press us. And I think our key is to try and hit them on a counterattack. They can get caught up the pitch with the way that they press. They press very high. They press in your own third, kind of like we used to do under Pochettino. That's what you're going to see from them. But they also, I think the other way where you can try and beat them is we have to maintain width. Lucas in this match is not someone for me because he doesn't maintain that width. When they play a back three, you have to try and draw those center backs out somehow, and drifting is not going to do that. You're not going to give Harry the opportunity if you don't maintain your width. So we have to find a way to do that. My concern would be Aurier getting caught up the pitch with the way that they play when they really attack down the wings. And so that would be my biggest concern. But I think the positive for us is this is the first time all season that Sheffield's really having to try and manage this fixture congestion like we have to with, European competitions. They haven't been in that. We had a rest this weekend. We have a full 9 days from the West Ham match to the Sheffield match, where they don't. They played United, then they had to go play Arsenal. Now they have to go play us, all within a 9-10 day span. So this is the first time they're really having to deal with that, and hopefully that can serve to our benefit, that their players aren't really ready for that type of congestion, because they maintain a consistent starting 11. They're not going to rotate much.
Well, in spite of their lack of results in their first 4 or 5 matches here, there's nothing that's really changed, right? I mean, we always we always had an eye on this as a tough fixture, right?
Right. Well, and keep in mind those first 3, Premier League fixtures for Sheffield. The very first one back, they had that bullshit Aston Villa call that it went over the line. So that one, you just look at the
Pedro Mendes,
you just look at the form guy and it's like, oh, they drew against Villa. Well, they probably shouldn't have drawn against that. Then they have a really soft second yellow sending off for John Egan against Newcastle. That's why it looks like Newcastle just battered them 3-0. Well, they were playing for 10 men for a really long time. And John Egan is one of their key players. He has only missed 2 games the entire Premier League season for them. He plays he is the middle of their back 3. He really organizes that defense. So you have him out, and then the game against United, we know how good they are, but once again, he's out. And then you had Jack O'Connell out, and Dean Henderson, your keeper, out. When you have a new keeper in there, it's a completely different organization. You're always looking over your back shoulder. Is he going to come out for it? Is he not? So I'm saying, don't look at the form guide and think that we have this one made. Sheffield's in very poor form.
So what is their form right now? They played 4 and lost 4 since we come back.
5.
They drew against Villa.
Oh, they drew against Villa. All right, so they haven't won in about 4 games.
4 or 5 matches?
Their 5th game. I think their 5th game will be against us, Sam. Yeah. And
okay.
You got that doctor's number on you. I might give him a call.
Doctor Who? Wait, Doctor Who? Ask Doctor Who?
Paging Dr. Tottenham. We got to be a bit more upbeat. There was positive things that came out of the West Ham game. If I can just flip back for a moment, in the second half, and one chap that we forgot to talk about, I think, was Harry Kane, because I thought he was excellent in the second half. He had obviously the goal, which he was probably gasping by that point, hence the celebration behind Dan there. And prior to that, he had a near post flick from Norier cross. Sonny set him up for a long range effort, and then we had that great breakaway where Lo Celso played him in, and we thought he scored, but it just went past the post. So he had 3 really good chances leading up to his goal. He scored on the 4th occasion, and he ran through and did that. And hopefully, this is a sign of things to come with Harry Kane. So that's a positive.
Well, and do you reckon that having 2 full 90-minute plus efforts and then 9 days off could be good for him?
I think so, and possibly going back to what Timmy was saying about rotating the squad, maybe I'll kind of half defend Jose here. Maybe he didn't bring any substitutes on against West Ham because he knew that he was going to have a 9-day break until Sheffield, so he could allow Harry Kane and Sissoko and Sonny to just stay on for the full 90. That's the only kind of justification I could think about those non-substitutions. But the 9-day break will probably do us good. Be interesting to see how we line up. I mean, I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on how we'll line up against Sheffield United.
Same again, I think. Like probably same again.
I think maybe one change.
Bergwijn.
Yeah,
Bergwijn for Lucas.
Maybe Bergwijn.
Well, actually, I don't know. In this match, with how much they're going to press us, you need to have someone with maybe a little more defensive qualities. I think I'm going to put Lamela in there. I really do.
Well, Adam Shaw on Facebook, Timmy says, "What does Jose see in Lucas?" I mean, in Lucas's name has come up a couple of times now.
I mean, 93rd minute Amsterdam.
He's living off of that.
Well, he's a player who can really change a game for you. He can, but in this match, when you need to play counterattacking, the problem with Lucas is when you're trying to play counterattacking football, he gets the ball and he just puts his head down and runs, and he doesn't look up for the passing option. And I think that's really going to hurt us in this game. I think Lamela does really good on the counterattack, but what we saw against United when he was playing the 10 role is that once he got into the box, he didn't know what to do with it. I think if you put him out on the wing in this game, he could have a little bigger of a contribution than he did against United. I would still put Dele in there, but I think one of the biggest keys is you have to have Lo Celso in the 2 holding midfielders because you need his creativity to start those counterattacks.
Well, hold on there. Talking about Lamela, he played central against United. You're quite right, and he did really well, I thought, from an energy standpoint and a pressing standpoint. And truth be told, his final ball in the final third wasn't good. I find, though, that in the past, that's where he is quite strong. He's played good final third passes into the area and created chances. He didn't do that against Man United. Against West Ham, he came on and he still had an impact on the game. He played centrally again, I believe, and that second goal that we scored came from Lamela nicking the ball in our defensive third and putting us on the front foot and creating the breakaway. So,
who made that pass, by the way? After Lamela stole the ball, my eyesight was so terrible.
Sonny.
I couldn't figure out who made that pass. It was Sonny. Okay.
Son, yeah. Played Kane.
Terrific pass.
So, whilst I hear what you're saying to me about Lamela playing wide, I do believe he's more effective when he's central. But then again, he'll fight for the cause wherever he plays. So you may well be right.
But then the thing is, if you're putting him central, who are you putting wide? And that's Bergwijn, which I really love what Bergwijn's shown for us, but I just don't think this is the match where you put him in there. I think maybe you save him for a few days later against Everton. We're about to hit a huge fixture congestion, and we have to manage that. I think you use Bergwijn, Lucas as subs. I mean, we all want to see Ndombele. I think this could be a good match for Ndombele, but who knows if we'll see that. It would be a pleasant surprise, but I just think that to get the most out of the way I anticipate Sheffield setting up, you go Son, Dele, Lamela, with Son and Lamela really needing to maintain some width.
Well, as I said, this is in spite of Sheffield's run of form, this is every bit of the difficult fixture that I think we all expected this to be going into this, this post-COVID part of the season. And I think that we've got to do a lot of things right. We've got to manage well. We've got to be set up well. We have to execute well. And, Ndombele, if he comes in, he's going to have to play really well, really disciplined. So I don't know whether we'll see him or not. But I think what we have had, what I can tell you, this is a great pod. We talked about a lot of sort of heady themes, and I think you guys gave listeners a lot of things to think about and to appreciate. So from that perspective, I'm very grateful. As we draw to a close here, have any shout outs? Is there anything that we've missed that's worth talking about?
Just give credit to a couple listeners who all asked questions on Ndombele, and we had a huge discussion on that was driven by a lot of these questions. We had Jay Knight at JKVT, Craig Emanuel at Crimble123, Josh Ballou at JBallou-Gigam06, Nathan Cohen at Nathan Cohen17, and Matt Tedesco on Facebook all asked some really good questions about Ndombele that helped us form that discussion. So just shout out to them.
Fabulous, gents. All right, so we got you got Sheffield. When's the match? Sheffield United Thursday at there, right?
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
You know what's interesting is that I actually think that works really well for us. I mean, they've got a pretty intimate stadium there, and I'm glad that we're not going to have to play them with a full crowd, and that maybe that will work for us as opposed to again.
I was going to say that one of their biggest weapons this season has been their home atmosphere. So having the chance to go there without it is a big plus for us, really.
Well, fingers crossed that this is not a Dr. Tottenham, we'll see you now type setup, and that we can get a result. And that, look, I think this is every bit as critical to me as a United win is, a United result could have potentially been to build from. I think this will be quite an accomplishment if we can come away with a result. So knock on wood and fingers crossed. On that note, I'll wish you guys a wonderful week with dreams of 3 points, and we'll come back next week. I'll see you guys hopefully from Colorado on Sunday, and we'll have another fabulous discussion. So have a great week, and come on, you Spurs.